Hey everyone, welcome to the last part of a four-part series on Dev Radio where we're talking about the latest on Accelerator for API management. I'm going to welcome back Cynthia, Anthony, and Pete. Welcome back, all three of you.
How you doing?
All right. I'm really
Wait,
excited
is
because,
Anthony doing the Queen
I
wave?
was. I mean, this is the big finale, so come on. So,
yeah, yeah, this is the parade. We get the demo. That's pretty much all I'm going to say is that today, after all the talk, explaining value prop, really going into detail of this accelerator, we get to talk about, well, not talk about, look at the real thing running. So I am going to get out of the way and let the three of you take it away from here.
Awesome. Thank you, Sydney. Do you mind sharing my screen?
I don't
Thank you
mind at
so
all.
much. So, hi everyone. Welcome back to the last part of our four-part series. Today, we are going to go through the flow of how you would deploy our reference implementation. And just really quickly, in case you missed our last session, we talked about this reference implementation of a single region APIM with a app gateway fronting our APIM instance, and then the backend using function apps that are accessed through private endpoints. And today we are going to walk through how exactly you would deploy this. So to start, Anthony, do you want to walk us through some of the pre-steps we need to do before we even touch configurations?
I never thought you'd ask. So, step one, obviously, you have to clone the repo so that you've got all of the bits and bytes and various things. The second step, and this one is assuming that you are going to use GitHub as the runner. If you remember from the last conversation, you could also bring your own ADO or bring your own runner period. But for our walkthrough, we're going to be using GitHub. Two ways to talk to GitHub. One, which we sort of go through, is using a service principal. Other option is to use OpenID Connect with a service principal, which is sort of linked in the piece. But at a really high level, you log in through the CLI, you hop to your subscription, you create your service principal, and you sort of pass some information over. Cynthia is going to show passing this information over, but pretty please do not commit your secrets to GitHub. Please don't commit your secrets to GitHub. GitHub will, in theory, now stop you from doing that, but the Microsoft people did not tell you to commit your secrets to GitHub. So anywho, now that you have definitely not committed your secrets to GitHub, you're going to go ahead and create a set of secrets in your repository. Secrets because you didn't commit your secrets to GitHub. And this is going to help the runner be able to work back and forth through the principle that you created. And that's the prereqs in a nutshell. And once all of those pieces are done, you set up one simple configuration.yaml file. You then commit said configuration.yaml file into the mix. And look at that, it's up on the screen. And then the magic hopefully happens, as long as we didn't offend the demo gods too much.
Are you ready to commit?
I like that. Are you ready to commit?
Are you ready to commit this config.yaml file? Let me be more specific. You only need to commit to this file right now. That's all I'm asking for.
I am all in on the APIM accelerator. Like I'm committed.
Speaking of commitments, while this is being committed, if you haven't seen the first three parts of the series, this is part of a playlist. So go back, watch part 1 through 3. Commit yourself to this entire series. Lots of really, really good information, and why we're doing what we're doing here in the demo. That's my commitment piece.
Thank you, Sydney. We appreciate your commitment. And really appreciate you hosting us throughout this entire series. And while this is running, as you can see on our config.yaml file, we are asking for a number of different configuration. Pete, do you want to walk us through what each of them are doing and why we're asking for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can see on the screen here, essentially the config.yaml file, what it's asking for is a set of information that it's going to read within the pipeline. So it takes this YAML file and sort of picks it apart and then passes those into whether it's Bicep, and then Terraform is coming. But you've got the Azure location, which is essentially where all the resources are going to exist. The resource name prefix. So we have some specific naming conventions, and they can be updated depending on what your naming requirements are. But so the resource prefix will be a part of the name, whether it's a resource group or the API management. The environment tag So whether it's dev or prod or where, what environment this is going to live in. The deployment name, the actual VM user username agent. So the name of the actual user that's going to be used when it actually deploys the runner. The account type, the account name, the CI/CD agent type for whether it's going to be DevOps or GitHub, and then the cert type. And so the cert type there's a couple of two different options. You can actually use the cert type to pass it in within Key Vault and have Key Vault generate an SSL cert for you, have it be managed within Azure in the Key Vault that gets created, or you can actually bring your own certificate. So if you have an internal cert or you've purchased an SSL cert from the company, you can bring that along as well.
Thank you, Pete. Well, now is the time to see the moment of truth. Whether or not our deployment succeeded.
Big money, no whammies, no whammies.
Oh, so good so far. So in terms of what our GitHub action workflow does, it first goes through just a set of steps to validate the template, actually looking through syntactical errors, seeing if you have all the right configurations, all the right parameters. And then obviously we go through the steps of build and deploy. This third step on the install YQ to parse YAML file. It parses the configuration file that Pete just walked through and takes care of each of the individual aspects. And then we log in using the service principal that Anthony just walked us through to create. And then it goes through validation again and starts as a deployment. This deployment usually takes a while, so we're not going to stay here and wait for that to finish. This is what it looks like when it's all done. You get all 3 green checks. And as part of this pipeline, I keep clicking on the wrong screen. The screen was sharing, not the screen that's actually my computer. But once this is all done, there's this last step that we've also started using that's really interesting is once the bicep deployment is completed, we also use that same bicep template to create our ARM template. So for people that are interested in using a ARM template for deployment, this is how we make our ARM templates available as well. And going through the last part, this is a set of resources that you'll see when that deployment completes. Anthony, do you want to start with maybe our APIM resource group and what's in it?
Absolutely. So as we mentioned in the last call, we broke up the deployment into a couple of different resource groups to support manageability, et cetera. The APIM group is sort of the front end. This has the app gateway, which is sort of fronting the private APIM instance and could also provide a firewall. It's got the public IP address that the app gateway is actually using to let traffic come in. It's got a managed identity so that you've got a controlled identity that is sort of authenticating between as opposed to having to deal with creds, et cetera. And then it's got the actual APIM instance, which is then wired back through with configuration that will let you access the function app that gets deployed as part of the Hello World solution. Well, what is like more than Hello World, but less than like everything? It's like Hello World and nice to be
Hello
here.
Universe.
I don't know. Hello Universe. There you go. Hello Metaverse.
Audience, right? That's usually what we do with the second demo.
Yeah.
And then in addition to that one, Anthony, do you also want to walk us through what's in the back end?
Sure. So inside the backend, we've got the actual function. Functions live inside an app service plan because they are premium tier or always on. They are hosted inside an app service plan as opposed to consumption. The functions use the storage account to actually store both the configuration for the function, logs, etc. But it's basically the persistent storage for the serverless compute that the function acts as, and the app service plan that kind of ties everything together, as we mentioned.
Yeah, and like we mentioned, Cynthia, I don't know if you want to touch on it too, but that the back end is sort of the reference implementation, an example of how you would actually take a set of services or a service and put it behind API management so that way you can test the solution end to end.
Yeah, the other piece that I would add is this all gets deployed through the CI/CD. So both the routes and configuration that point to the back end are running through your runner, and everything that's getting deployed from the function. So if you woke up tomorrow and said, hey, I don't want to use a hello world example, I want to actually put a for realsies API up here, you put a little bit of code into the reference implementation, you run it through the same runner, and Bob's your uncle, everything works.
Bob is your uncle?
It could be.
But okay, I'm gonna turn it over to Pete. Pete, can you walk us through what is in the networking resource group?
Yeah, and so this is essentially a grouping of services for the networking side. It contains your bastion. It contains the network's security groups that are available. So network security groups, the way we structured them out, like we talked about in the last video, are sort of domain-based. So you can see all of the list of APIs, API managements, network security groups, app gateway security, network security groups. And we've got the public IP addresses that live for the API management and the bastion, or sorry, the jump box and the bastion that are used, and then the VNet for the overall implementation. And then Bob's your uncle, and you have a network.
Now that I know Bob's my uncle, Pete, what else is in our shared resource group that gets deployed from the GitHub workflow that we were just showing earlier?
There's more.
Yeah. And so this is everything that it the name says it quite a bit, is it's shared across a lot of the resources. So you see App Insights, the Azure private DNS zone. So this is what is used within the VNet to essentially resolve the resources that are available. The virtual machine that's there from the jump box side of it. And then you go through all the network interfaces that are tied to the virtual machine. If you keep going down, there should be also a key vault. And so that's the key vault that we talked about, where you can store or generate a key, an SSL cert, a log analytics workspace to sort of track from the App Insights side of it, and then the private DNS zones that are used throughout the application to resolve the actual domains themselves.
And that is a quick round of our demo that really all of these steps are documented in this user guide as well. But we really just wanted to play with fire a little bit and see how much of it will actually work live. And fortunately, we did well.
So we do have a question from the chat. I'm gonna throw that question up there for anybody who wants it. Great demo. If there's a change made to the API, will that also update API management? Looks like they are in different resource groups. I could be wrong there.
So if you're changing an actual API, so the API itself, if you're updating the contract, that would flow through, but that's sort of on the API side. But if the policy changes themselves, there's a separate DevOps flow. If you're looking to essentially change the policy and add a different, so you're looking to add rate limiting or change the rate limiting, that's going to be in a separate process.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Pete, for the answer, and thank you for the question out there. Yeah, so this is the last part of 4-part series. If you haven't seen the other parts, definitely go back in the playlist, check them out. Anthony, Pete, Cynthia, thank you all for this wonderful series, and we hope to get you back on as the Accelerator grows and you add new features to give us a nice update a couple months, maybe a year from now. I'm putting pressure on. There you go.
We already have a whole bunch of new stuff coming up. Terraform, we maybe have multi-region. Like, oh my God, there's so many moving parts.
All right, for everybody else who's watching, make sure you subscribe to our channel. Make sure you enable the notifications, and that way you'll know when we go live. And we will see you all next time.
Thanks, all.
Thank you.